Hello and welcome to the France24 interview. I'm Annette Young and we're coming to you today from the United Nations Library, which is just metres away from where the General Assembly is being held. Now, despite the fact that this is the first General Assembly since the beginning of the Arab Spring, it's been somewhat dramatically overshadowed by the Palestinians' announcement that they're intending to seek application for statehood at the Security Council. It's made the Americans and the Israelis furious, with both saying the only way forward is through direct negotiations. Joining me now is Danny Ayalon, Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister. Mr. Ayalon, thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
Pleasure to be here.
What I want to do is start by asking you about the French proposal. This is, of course, President Sarkozy who's come up with a plan B, if you like, that being that instead of going for a vote for full statehood at the Security Council, that the Palestinians instead look at enhanced observer status, that they take that to the General Assembly. What is your response to President Sarkozy's suggestion?
Well, first and foremost, of course, we respect very much France and the French position, and, you know, we admire the French people from time immemorial. Although it is a very intriguing proposal, I'm afraid it may not be realistic, in the sense that it will not further or bring about any type of solution yet, so long as the Palestinians are so intransigent in not wanting to sit with us.
But you understand that what the President is trying to do is try and find a common position which is acceptable to all parties, and there were media reports last week that even Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu wasn't entirely closed to the idea of enhanced observer status.
Yes, this is why I said we are intrigued, and certainly we would welcome some more discussion about it. But I'll tell you, Annette, the one thing which we cannot understand is why the Palestinians are so adamant in pushing and turning the process upside down. You know, we have a classic example of the latest member state that joined the United Nations, which is South Sudan. After 3 decades of real bloodshed and 2 million casualties, they iron out all the differences between them, the parties, and only then, together, jointly, they came to the Security Council, General Assembly. In one fell swoop, the entire process was a normal process without any convulsions, without any complications, without any kind of a cut and paste approach, which is not only not elegant, it's not effective. So I can tell you that there's nothing that Israelis would like better than joining the Palestinians hand in hand and coming with a resolution together about creating the new state of Palestine, living side by side with Israel.
But you understand why the Palestinians have done this, because they refused to go back to the negotiating table while Israel continues to build in the West Bank and East Jerusalem.
But this I beg to differ, because I strongly believe that this is just a pretext, an excuse not to come to the negotiation and avoid difficult decisions that they will have to take. Everybody's asking, where is Israel? You know, we have been compromising throughout the process, giving land, dismantling settlements like in Gaza.
Don't you see that is being seen as being highly inflammatory, provocative, when you're building in areas that are seen to be occupied territories?
We took over the territories in 1967. It was a war of self-defense. We didn't take it from Palestine. There was never, ever a Palestinian territory, a Palestinian state. We took it over from Jordan. It was a Jordanian. So it should be in dispute. But what I'm saying is that the whole issue of the settlement is but one of quite a few issues which are the core of the conflict. We have refugees, we have Jerusalem, we have final boundaries, we have settlements, we have security arrangement, and we have recognition issues. You know, we also would like very much the Palestinians to give the Jewish people the benefit of self-determination as we recognize theirs. All these issues, Annette, are interrelated. You cannot just cherry-pick one issue like settlement and say, well, let's just discuss this now, or take precondition and stop doing this or that. We didn't do it with them on refugees and other things which are very much in our interest and future. We say, let's talk about everything together simultaneously, because then there is a give and take, and there is much more leeway for leaders to compromise.
Let me just come back to the idea of enhanced observer status. Now, I understand the Israelis do have a problem with that, primarily because if indeed the Palestinians were awarded such a status, it would allow them to participate in UN conventions and treaties, primarily the International Criminal Court, where the fear is, as far as the Israelis are concerned, that they would pursue Israeli military and government officials over charges of war crimes against humanity.
Not exactly. First of all, we are very much confident in the due process of the law. Israel is a democracy with transparency, accountability, and we're very proud of our legal system and rule of law, of our Supreme Court. So I don't think this will be a problem. You know, in the Middle East, there is a saying where they say that if you have butter on your head, don't go into the sun. I think the Palestinians, if you look what's happening in the Palestinian territories in terms of abuse of human rights and women's rights and indiscriminate killing and lack of rule of law. And I'm talking about the West Bank and the authority, not Hamas. We didn't talk about the Hamas, which is a terror organization. So I'm not sure this would be an arena that the Palestinians would like to pursue. It's a matter of the principle. And the principle is that there is a way to join the UN, there is a way to join all other international organizations. And I don't believe that the Palestinians should be sui generis, a unique case among others in the entire world. You mentioned, quite rightly in the beginning, there are so many problems today in the world, and especially in the Middle East. It is quite clear that the Palestinian issue is not central to the Middle East in terms of security, in terms of stability, in terms of its future. And yet the Palestinians, because of great PR, I must admit, are turning the entire international community as a rubber stamp to their capricious conduct, if I may. And this is wrong.
Okay, let's say that the Palestinians go ahead, that they go to the Security Council and they demand a vote on their application. What will be the Israeli response after that? What will happen the day after that? Because some Israeli ministers have suggested that Israel immediately annex the settlements, that you withhold tax revenues from the Palestinians. They've outlined some pretty harsh measures.
Well, first of all, Annette, Security Council is the body which really counts. You know, this is the body with the mandate, which was vested with the interest and mandate for world peace, security, stability. So I do not believe that a push of the Palestinians or by the Palestinians at the Security Council will do much. I believe that there will be enough countries, responsible countries, France included, that will oppose such a unilateral move. But we know that at the General Assembly, for instance, they do have an automatic majority because of the Islamic countries. What we say is that by the Palestinians going to the UN unilaterally, first of all, it is a breach, a major breach of all the agreements with them. So by doing this, they walk away from the agreement. They actually shut the door on possible negotiations in the future. They choose conflict and friction over negotiation and reconciliation. So they are the ones abrogating the agreement. So by them going to the UN, it's tantamount to them nulling and voiding the Oslo agreements, which means Israel is not anymore committed to something which doesn't exist. Then the question is, what will Israel do? I can tell you, well, we're not going to just shoot off the calf. We're not going to act automatically or irresponsibly or rashly. We will certainly discuss and will consider the situation, and we will act according to our interest and the interest of stability in the region. But certainly we will not be held accountable. It's the Palestinians' responsibility for any deterioration on the ground. You know what really what worries me most is that with raising expectations and actually leading their people to believe that they can literally build a state here in New York at the UN is something that can build expectation and lead into violence among the Palestinians.
Danny Ayalon, finally, this comes at a time that Israel is facing increasing diplomatic isolation in the region. Two former strong regional allies, Turkey and Egypt. Well, certainly things are very different now. Are you fearful of what is happening to the Jewish state, that you are increasingly facing a situation where you could be to this decade what Serbia was in the 1990s and what South Africa was in the 1980s?
Of course, I'm very concerned. We see an onslaught of a smear campaign against Israel. We see a campaign to try and delegitimize Israel, and this concerns me very much. This is why it is important for us, first of all, to counter this offense with the facts and show the facts, who we are and what we are. The only democracy in the Middle East that would like very much to have the Palestinians build their own state. But the only concern we have and the only stipulation we have that this Palestinian nation building will not be on account of the Jewish state. And I believe it's not a zero-sum game. There is a place for a Jewish-Israeli state and an Arab-Palestinian state living side by side. But for that, we need to sit together.
Can I just very quickly ask you, if the Turkish ambassador was invited back to your office, would you ensure that he would be seated at the right level, at the same level as yourself?
Absolutely, and I can tell you that not only I apologized to him, I did it in writing. And the idea was not to humiliate him. When I realized he felt humiliated, I immediately apologized. When apology is due, we will apologize. When it's not due, we will not apologize.
Danny Ayalon, thank you so much for your time. That's it for this edition of the France24 interview. Stay tuned for more news and headlines, which are coming up shortly.